Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Boker Tov. It's wonderful to be back here again at the annual meeting of 2025. Many of you know that one of the projects that we engaged in this past year was the project of a big conversation around prayer. And the truth is, we're still in the middle of that project. You know, there's a vision ahead that the frontal presentations on the different aspects of prayer was just the beginning, a grounding for us to have a deeper conversation among a lot more people regarding what is meaningful in our community when it comes to the experience and the community of prayer that we create every single day here at Shereth Israel. And when I think about a meeting like this, a meeting that is a business meeting, a meeting that we're going to talk about numbers, and we're going to talk about leadership, and we're going to talk about the challenges that we've overcome, and the challenges that are ahead. There's a lot of business to do. But one thing that we recognized, I think that we can all agree on from our experience of prayer, is that nothing is without the opportunity to elevate with holiness. Everything has the spark of divinity within it. We just have to search for it. We just have to reach into ourselves and recognize that in each and every number, there's a spark of holiness. In every challenge that we face, there's a spark of holiness. In every person that steps forward to address the challenges that we face, there is a spark of holiness. And if we look within ourselves and look within our experience of what we're about to enter into, and we seek it, we will find it, that spark of holiness. So may it be your will, Adonai our God, and God of our ancestors, that you continue to bless our congregation, Shereth Israel, with renewed strength as we mark another year of our leadership. May we merit the many gifts of holiness that our generations that came before us bestowed upon us. The culture of family and welcoming, which has a spark of holiness within it. This beautiful building that we reside in, where we learn and we pray, we connect to one another, the sparks of holiness within. An abundance of leaders that are sitting here in this room now and are watching on Zoom and are throughout the entire congregation, each of whom has a spark of holiness within him. All willing to give of themselves to create meaningful living through Judaism. We are grateful beyond measure for the sparks of holiness that are abundant in our community. We'll now begin by approving the minutes, which I can't imagine a more exciting 2024 spark of holiness to begin. Melanie.
Okay, before I have my concluding remarks as president, I was asked to make a special request. I usually frown on special requests, but for Denise McLaughlin, I would do anything. So I'm making a plug for the Arlene Brightman Pollinator Garden. They're looking for volunteers to help out with gardening. Eileen Sherman redid the garden a couple years ago. Her, Denise, a few others have been loyally dedicated to cleaning up the garden, and they're looking for new volunteers, new participants. They're doing a training next Sunday at 10:30. If you're interested in learning about gardening and helping out our community garden, please show up next Sunday. They're willing to talk to you. They're back there, Denise and Eileen. They'd even teach you today if you're interested. So please consider helping out with the garden. Okay, so my outgoing remarks. Friends, members, today, as I share my final remarks as president, I want to reflect not just on our term of leadership, but on our shared story, the story of Shereth Israel. Our congregant story is a rich one, rooted in deep tradition, shared by resilience, and propelled by a constant drive to become more than what we were yesterday. From our beginnings, Shereth Israel has carved out a unique space in Atlanta's Jewish community, a home for people seeking connection, meaning, and purpose. We've always been a community unafraid to ask big questions, to embrace both the beauty of tradition and the necessity of change. If we look at our past year, and really the past few years, we see a Shereth Israel that has grown, stronger, deeper, and more vibrant. We've welcomed 67 new member units, new households, which is 166 individuals in the last 2 years, which is amazing. Thank you, everybody. And just a reminder that people want what Shereth Israel offers: real community, real connection in Judaism. We've gathered for Shabbat, for holidays, for life cycle events, for learning. Just last week, over Purim, I was beaming with joy. We had a packed house on Thursday night for the Megillah reading. We had a beautiful bar mitzvah. On Sunday, we had an awesome Purim spiel and the Purim festivities. On a side note, our oldest Caleb had soccer practice last Thursday night, and he told our Georgia Tech Uber driver, college girl helping out, that instead of going home after practice, he wanted to come to Shereth Israel for the Megillah reading. So, nachas. From the Joe Cohen Award to Shereth for Good, for Machina Shai's growth, Emory at Shereth, back to shul with Rabbi Dr. Shai held. We've had prayer conversations, trivia night, Havdalah jam. We filled these walls with prayer, study, and celebration. And in one of the hardest moments in modern Jewish history, October 7th and its aftermath, we responded with compassion, clarity, and action. We asked ourselves, how do we care for one another? How do we support Israel? How do we give people a voice to process and to heal? We created spaces to grieve, reflect, and act. Our congregation has shown that we are not just a synagogue, but we are a people, a family, a community that endures and leads by example. And yet, as in any great story, we are now in a moment of transition, a wilderness moment, if you will. It's a time of great possibility and some uncertainty. We're experiencing significant leadership transitions, leaders that have shaped our recent chapters. Jania Moore, who brought us financial expertise and discipline. She built out systems that will serve us long after her chapter here ends. Rabbi Helfand, whose energy and focus on engagement reminded us that relationships are the beating heart of Judaism. Sharon Gratz, whose leadership in Machina Shai helped us reimagine youth and family learning for the next generation. And while any change is accompanied by sadness, concern, and natural questions, I want to say clearly, each of these leaders are leaving for the best reasons: professional growth, personal needs, and with love and respect for this community. But here is what I've learned as president: they leave behind gifts, foundations on which we will build. Looking ahead, I believe Sheriff Israel is poised for its next great chapter. We're actively stewarding our campus, thinking boldly about space and purpose through master planning and capital investments, and you'll hear about a little later. Jody and Lindy are leading. We are deepening security and safety to ensure Sheriff Israel remains a place of sanctuary and joy. We are investing in our financial health through increased membership engagement and our annual appeal efforts, because we know that sustaining the sacred community takes real resources. And we are moving forward with our next executive director and our director of education. I feel very good. I'm excited about both of those positions and both those opportunities. Most importantly, we are nurturing the soul of this community, the relationships, the learning, the Jewish life that makes Sheriff Israel what it is. So as I prepare to hand over the sacred responsibility, I want to say that Sheriff Israel's story is not stagnant. We are thriving. I believe deeply that our incoming executive leadership team, with support of our clergy, staff, board, and all of us, will flourish. I want to express my deepest gratitude to our rabbis and staff for their dedication, to the board for their wisdom, partnership, and care, to our members who show up not just to events, but for one another. A special thank you for those stepping off the board, in particular our outgoing executive committee, Heidi, Jeff, Renee, Jerry, Melanie. Thank you for all of your support and all of your years of service. We could not have functioned without you all. And a warm welcome to our new leaders. It has been one of the greatest honors of my life to serve as your president. Thank you for trusting me with this role. Thank you to Lisa and my family for providing me the space and support to take on this responsibility. May we all continue to walk this journey together. Thank you. Okay. I get carried away. Thank you, everybody. Now we will have Jerry's treasurer's report. So on that, Jerry Rothenberg, our outgoing treasurer.
Good morning. Just take a minute here while we get set up. All right, perfect. I wish I had Ori as my IT guy when I was working. That was perfect. I am here this morning to report on our financial position and how the work accomplished during the past 2 years reflects where we are in this part of the story of Sheriff Israel. I'll start with a recap of some of our projects and changes and then get into some high-level numbers. I'll try not to have any spreadsheets that are so small that you all have to run up here to read the numbers. Not going to do that today. But before I do that, I just want to say being your treasurer has been really humbling and an honor. And there were times when being treasurer was more intense than being president. So I was kind of surprised by that, but it's been a fun experience for me, a learning experience, and getting to work with the finance committee and the board and the staff in a much more intimate way was very meaningful for me and made the last 2 years not as much of a burden as you might think it would have been given the role here. So let's get started. Well, there we go. So the first two things we did is we changed the fiscal year to start on July 1st. And then we also, at the same time, separated the operating and the capital budget from each other. And the idea here is I felt a need to better understand the financial situation with Sheriff Israel, and I felt by commingling the operating and the capital budget, it kind of masked what was happening on a day-to-day basis and not allowing us to fully understand what we were doing, which made it harder to decide when we needed to spend money, when we needed to not spend money, when things were going well, when things weren't going well, and which made budgeting kind of difficult. So thankfully, Jania and I saw eye to eye on this, and with Jania's effort and spirit and energy, we were able to get the fiscal year changed and get the operating budget built without the capital as being part of it. So that was a pretty helpful thing. We also, for the first time, have started an external audit. We're still in the middle of it. We're still gathering information for the auditors, and I'll be working with the next treasurer to get that effort finished. What this will do for us is, most importantly, it will allow us, first of all, to ensure you that an outside agency agrees that we're doing okay in terms of how we're running the business side of the house. The other thing that it will help us do is apply for more grants and more money from all kinds of different entities who like to see that your numbers have been audited by an external party. So that was pretty important to us. Thanks to Andy Lorber for leading the effort on doing that. Also, some of the other projects this year that we've done, we implemented an investment policy, and we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. So guidelines that will help us manage how our investments are handled. We've been doing a pretty good job. We'll see some of that a little bit later. We've gotten some grants that we've applied for, and we just recently started receiving money from the various entities that pay out those grants as we've started doing the work and gotten the approval from those governing agencies. So we have started receiving money in from those grants. So it is a real thing. I actually saw an image of the check. It was great and a big relief. We've streamlined how we pay our madrachim, the teenagers who help out in the religious school, to help us better manage that operation and help prevent fraud. We actually had some fraud a few years ago there. We've streamlined how we do our credit card processing so that Jacinta isn't spending days figuring out what to do with the credit cards each month, and making it easier for our staff to report on what they've done with their credit cards. A few other projects along the way that we really don't need to get into too much. Let's start talking about our reserve and restricted funds. This is an area I didn't talk about too much last year, but I definitely wanted to get into it some this year. Currently, as of this past Friday at close of business, we had funds at Schwab of about $2,090,000. And this is, we've had a relationship with Schwab for 8 or 9 years now, and over the 2024 calendar year, not the fiscal year, we've seen a return of 15.41%. So hats off to Blair and Barry, who make up the investment committee along with the treasurer, who have done an excellent job of managing our funds so that they have a good return and are fairly safe. Obviously, there's going to be some ups and downs, but 15%, not bad. 2023 calendar year, our return was about 14.75%. If you're curious, so far this year we're down 0.63%, but so is everybody. But I think we'll be okay. During calendar year 2024, and I know I'm mixing up fiscal year and calendar year now, but we'll get to that in a minute. We withdrew almost $600,000 from our Schwab accounts. Some of this was planned, actually all of this was planned, either as the standard withdrawal that we take from two of the funds every year. Some of it was to pay for air conditioning projects that we had planned and had been approved by the board. So this is where we talked about last year about converting some of our financial assets into our hard assets, our property. So we've already had some major work done on our HVAC system, and it continues. As you know, we've got $2 million in those Schwab funds. However, it's not enough to do the whole project that we're talking about. So there is a plan for that as well. But I won't. We're gonna keep you on edge for that one. So during that time that we were withdrawing $600,000, our funds returned $314,000. So pretty good that during the time we were drawing down by 600, we gained by over 300. So the whole idea of carefully stewarding our investments is helping to fund the work we need to do on our physical plant here. So what makes up our reserve and restricted funds? The biggest piece of it is our reserve, what I call the reserve fund. We used to call it endowment, and a lot of you probably still will, but I like to think of it more as a reserve or emergency or rainy day fund. That's about $930,000 right now. The board set a guideline based upon a recommendation from the investment committee that this fund not go below $1 million so that it can continue to return that investment that we've talked about. We had to do this because the air conditioning project had to get going, and we didn't have a choice. But we also knew that there would be other money, coming in throughout the year that we could replenish this fund. And I'm confident that by the end of the summer, we'll be able to replenish this fund, by this missing $70,000. Some of the other funds we have, there's the Centennial Torah Fund, which has about $640,000 in it, and then some of the other smaller funds that you can see as you go around the wheel here. Are there any questions about the reserve and restricted funds? Okay, we also have some other assets. Our day-to-day operations are managed with Wells Fargo bank accounts. We have 8 bank accounts now. We've increased that number over the years to help us better manage and better understand the different buckets of money that we have. For example, there's a building and grounds checking account. We have a checking account for the cemetery committee where they manage their operations. We also have separate checking accounts for the rabbi's 2 discretionary funds and so forth. So there's about $430,000 in those accounts. We have some certificates of deposit that are $300,000 that are associated with the cemetery. Another asset that we have that's not financial in nature are cemetery plots. We have about 300 cemetery plots that are owned by Sheriff Israel at 2 different cemeteries. At a cost basis, these were worth $680,000 at the time they were purchased, which is the number you use for accounting and balance sheets and that sort of thing. However, if we were to sell all those plots today, they would be worth almost $2 million. So we've got a lot of asset there. And then also we have our building and grounds here, which are worth conservatively $1.9 million. Any questions about our other assets? So taking a look at the big picture, some of the what I call balance sheet highlights. So we have financial assets of about $2.8 million. We have cemetery plots that are worth $380, and I forgot to mention, we have 2 loans, zero interest loans, that the cemetery committee negotiated when they purchased those plots, that the current balance on those is about $300,000. So from a balance sheet standpoint, I kind of subtracted it from here to make it kind of clear where that is. Buildings and grounds, $1.9 million. So we have total assets of somewhere north of $5 million. Okay, obviously, we can't just say, well, if the air conditioning costs $5 million, well, we don't. This isn't all in cash, obviously. We need a place to worship, and this is it. So where does the money come from? Well, obviously, it comes from primarily the membership, you folks. So how do we have confidence that the organization is healthy and that it's worth investing our time and energy, blood, sweat, and tears in? Well, we have an annual appeal each year, as you know, and this year our goal for the annual appeal was $380,000. So far, in the books, we have $380,000 on the annual appeal. I know there's more coming. I know there's at least $20,000 in the mail this week. We should get it by the end of this week. So in total pledges, we had $420,000. So by the end of the week, we'll exceed our goal by 5% money in the bank, and we have pledges exceeding our goal by 10%. So this breaks all the records for any annual appeal that we've had. Any questions about the appeal? So thank you for your confidence. Oh, yes, thank you. I actually wrote them down, forgot to say it. Yeah, Tall and Paya really did. Great team. Are they here? I don't see them. Yeah, they really did a great job. They were very relaxed, but very firm. It was just, really, I took some lessons from their leadership on how to push a committee forward gently but firmly. Okay, so what about this operating budget that I've been talking about? I mentioned a couple of times. Let me throw this up here, let you look at some of these numbers. I hope it's big enough that you can see it. Okay. So we're about 8 months through the year. These numbers that I've got up here are as of February 28, 8 months. We've come through our rich season with the annual appeal. High percentage of dues have been paid. All school tuition has been paid. So looking at the first column, the budget column, I've adjusted our annual budget, which is actually about $1.6 million is our annual budget. I've adjusted it for 8 months so that these numbers make a little bit more sense. So our budget through 8 months, but includes all 12 months of the appeal, because we should have collected all that by now. And by the way, we did have collected up to our budget goal. So that's $1,180,000. Our 8 months worth of expenses is about $1,054,000. The budget is balanced. It is a zero balanced budget. However, because I'm saying that we should have collected all of our appeal by now, that's why the income number is higher than the expense number on the budget side. On the actual side, we've collected on income from various sources $1,341,000. The expense side is $1 million. So on the income side, we're 13.5% over budget. That's going to come down a little bit because we're getting into our leaner months. On the expense side, this really has these changes to separate out the capital budget from the operating budget have really allowed us to do a good job of budgeting, and we're actually at the moment 3% under the budgeted anticipated expenses. So hats off to Jania, Jacinta, Adam, the education staff for helping us get here. It's pretty incredible that the budget is this close. When you go down into the individual numbers, of course, some of the numbers are higher than 3%, some are lower. Of course, there's some give and take, but overall, we're 3% under budget for the moment. So that means as of February 28th, we are $320,000 in the black. That's not going to hold up because we're getting into our lean months. So I anticipate that we're going to be in the red about $50,000 a month for each of the next 4 months. So I'm sure you can do this math, 4 months to go. I still think we're going to be in the black by about $120,000 at the end of June. Any questions about my logic or illogic here? Okay, where does our income come in from? These are the sources of our revenue, if you will. Most of it comes from you in the form of membership and the annual appeal, as we've already mentioned. 74% from dues and from the annual appeal. The slice of pie from the annual appeal will shrink as each month goes by because we're not collecting any more of that to speak of for the rest of the year, just another 5% or so. So on the membership side, the vast share there is dues. Then we have annual appeal on the ritual side with a few other dollars from different things. Buildings and grounds is the next biggest slice of the pie at 14%. That's primarily rent from the parsonage and the school building. And then tuition is about 7%. And then miscellaneous administrative income, yard-side plaques, and so forth is about 5%. Any questions on where the money comes from? Last year I mentioned that we had taken in less in dues in 2023 than we had, the trend had gone the wrong way from the previous 5 years. So I rebuilt this slide and I added in dues for this year so far. So far, we've collected almost as much in dues as we collected in all of 2023, calendar 2023, that is. So with 4 more months to go and most people on the monthly payment plan, I'm pretty sure we're going to exceed $600,000 in dues collections before the end of June. Our goal on the budget was $636,000. So I think we're in real good shape on this key indicator. Another area that I like to look at is membership growth. Blair already alluded to it. In June 2023, we had about 411 member units. What does that look like today? Blair mentioned that we've added 60-some members. Well, we've also lost a few members, but we've had net growth up to 441 member units as of Friday. This is great. 7% growth in membership. What better indication that things are going well here at Sherith Israel? So in summary, let me get my summary page. I skipped all this information. So, how does a numbers nerd like me decide that the board is doing a good job or not, and the staff are doing a good job? Well, you look at the balance sheet. $5 million to the good. We only have $300,000 in liabilities for those cemetery notes that I mentioned, which, by the way, are at 0% interest, which is pretty good. So healthy balance sheet. We've got a healthy income and expense statement. We've got good membership growth. And as I recall, we haven't had any kind of membership drives or anything like that, and yet we've still managed to grow. So to me, I had no idea, when I took over that the changes that we made, the strengths that had been built by previous boards throughout the last decade has brought us to this point, the staff, the rabbis, just, it's one reason why this has been kind of humbling to see how well this operation appears to be running. And it has really been an honor for me to serve as your treasurer, much more so than I really expected. And, my wife thanks you for forcing my brain to keep active even though I've been retired. So. Rabbi Kamen.
I want to share a few words of Torah because there could not be a more appropriate place in the cycle of the story of the Torah to have this annual meeting than these weeks. Because these are the weeks that we describe the building of the Mishkan, the traveling wilderness sanctuary. It was a project that involved everybody. God gave Moses a plan, and Moses found an artist. The artist's name was Bezalel, which means in the image or in the shadow of the divine, that spark of holiness. And Bezalel took the plan and he engaged the gifts of every person in the community to create something special, a place in which God could dwell. I've written about the art project that I started to commission at the behest of a conversation I had with Scott Horowitz 8 years ago. Not everyone knows this story. You're probably going to hear it more than once if you hadn't already read it. But in brief, the idea was that we would find a way to tell the story of Shearith Israel through a piece of art that we would commission. And I went about commissioning that piece of art, and 8 years later, all of the steps that have happened to lead us into the moments that we're going to hear about in a video ahead have occurred. And I wrote that I am deeply grateful that we didn't succeed in commissioning the piece of art 8 years ago, because we've written a new chapter of our story. Just yesterday, or 2 days ago, I had a vision of what that art piece might look like. For sure, it isn't a set in stone kind of thing. We're going to need a lot of help. But in our chapel, there's a piece of art, and it's by an artist that many of you have seen, who takes the words of the Torah and uses the words from the Torah, from the Psalms, or from the book of Genesis, and the words themselves are the lines and the pictures and the material of the image of what it's describing. And I thought, what if we thought of all of the stories of Shearith Israel's history, all of the chapters of our growth, all of the values that make up who we are, and we took the actual names of our members, and those become the lines and the images and the colors that tell the story of who we are and who we're becoming. Because each and every one of us has a spark of divinity, has a contribution to the story, is a part of something bigger. We are the Torah of Shereth Israel. We are writing our story. And when I reflect on all that has happened over these last 8.5 years that I've been your rabbi, and I think about these past 2 years in particular, and the story of where Shereth Israel fits in the bigger story of the Jewish people, and where the Jewish people sit in the bigger story of this world that God envisions, we are creating something beautiful, something resilient, something that is strong and deep and a part of a vision that we all should be proud of. We fit into a big picture and to a beautiful piece of art. And I'm not sure exactly who Bezalel is in our congregation. I'm not much of an artist. I don't know who is Moses and who is the person bringing their individual gift. One of the things that's beautiful about our community is that as we write the story, we're all writing it together. People you talk to recognize that Shereth Israel is Shereth Israel not because of one person, but because of all of us together. And I want to thank, in particular, Blair and this past board for all of their incredible vision and leadership and hard work. I want to thank Jania and Sharon, who aren't here now, and I want to in particular thank Rabbi David for his partnership, for his thoughtful leadership, for his engagement with new members and bringing people and energy to our congregation. Thank you for your Torah. I want to make sure also everyone is here on the weekend of May, I think 17th, 18th. We're having a send-off Shabbat where we are going to celebrate Rabbi David. We're also going to be celebrating our graduating seniors that particular Shabbat, and we're going to have the opportunity to see them into their next chapter with joy and with love. So please, everyone, be here for that special opportunity. We are writing a new chapter. It starts today. And in this next chapter, we are going to see beautiful art emerge. We are going to see an incredible era of strength. And it won't be without its challenges, but as we have in every chapter of Shereth Israel's story, we will overcome them. And I have incredible optimism and expectation for where Jeff, I don't want to, count the votes before they're counted, but I have a pretty good idea of where this is headed. Where this next leadership is going to bring us is going to be really something special, something we're going to remember forever, just as we've remembered the past boards and the past leadership. And so I want to thank everyone here for being a part of this story, for creating this piece of art that is Shereth Israel, and being the names that will become forever a part of not just our story, but the story of the Jewish people and the world. I now invite forward Heidi, our immediate past president, who is going to present the slate of our next board.
It's very exciting. Very exciting. Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi. That was such beautiful words, Blair. I thought it was one of my greatest honors to have served you on your board for the last 10 years, but actually the biggest, for sure, is having been able to put together this next slate of leaders who are going to take us into a whole other world as we're launching into something just incredibly spectacular. So I am truly honored to introduce these people and to say to our congregation, those of you online and here in the room, that the slate I'm about to introduce, that these folks really have already been serving this community in a variety of ways, and I know that you will all help them feel glad that they took this next step in leadership. All of us serve, whether it's coming on Saturday morning or being on volunteer groups, being part of committees, coming to our special events. All of those things are ways that you build our community, and we're so thrilled that you're here. And now, I'm going to read out what all of you have gotten already in the mail. We have 35 people that have already placed their votes. We're looking forward to, I think Steve is going to help us pass out ballots. Thank you, that's the word, ballots, to introduce, and then I'll have a little moment for this slate, but to introduce to you, and should we have folks stand?
Sure.
Yeah? I'm going to read out your names. So the proposed slate for the CSI 2025-2027 Board of Trustees: President Jeff Kirsch, Vice President of Strategy Nancy Green, Vice President of Governance Robin Rosenberg, Treasurer Ben Krieger, Secretary Mara Block, Immediate Past President Blair Rothstein, Chair of the Financial Advancement Committee Jay Steinberg, Chair of Human Resources Andy Green, Chair of Religious Life Michael Rich, Chair of Member Stewardship Sarah Duke, At-Large Trustees Andrew Lorber, Aaron Siegler, Rick Kaplan, Rachel Silverman, Donna Miller, Rachel Dobbs-Schwartz, Marcia Jacobs, and John Efron. And lastly, the Chair of the Council of Past Presidents, Howie Slomka. To the slate of leaders, if you don't mind standing for one more moment, I'll leave you with one last running analogy. When you're deep in a challenging interval, or a painful sprint, or an uphill climb, remember your form. Chin up, eyes with a soft gaze slightly ahead, and your crown, as always, on your head. Mazel tov to the slate. I think we have a collector here, and we have rabbis handing out pencils and ballots. Do we need extra hands?
Thank you very much, everyone. I am really humbled by your confidence in entrusting me with this role. Mike? Sorry about that. Sorry about that. In my first effort, I will learn the sound system. I am really humbled by your confidence in entrusting me with this role. I hope I can deliver on your expectations, well, your reasonable expectations. On behalf of the board, I want to, first of all, sincerely thank Blair. Blair, people often talk about the tireless efforts of a volunteer, but Blair really has demonstrated a stunning ability to manage his volunteerism, a very robust career, and most importantly, an amazingly busy and wonderful family who've had his own challenges and triumphs, and he is really someone I truly admire from his efforts. Thank you, Blair. I also want to thank, at this time, my wife, Natalie, in her great support of my taking on this responsibility. I know this work will be challenging at times, but she is a great advisor and a very calming presence for me, so thank you for that. Yes, absolutely. Our shul, as you have just heard, is stronger than ever. As we look ahead to the next 2 years and beyond, I thought it would be meaningful to reflect back on the story of Shereth Israel you've been hearing about. We have a long and interesting history of over 120 years. In our first chapter, Shereth Israel families lived downtown in the area now known as Summerhill, met mostly in people's homes, and there's an Orthodox community. In fact, so much rooted in its orthodoxy and its past that the rabbi's sermons were delivered in Yiddish, which I thought was quite interesting. In our second chapter, starting at about the 1940s and 1950s, the families of Shereth Israel were migrating northward into Morningside. With a pioneering spirit, they acquired this property, investing millions of dollars to make it their own. Synagogue practices moved as well, becoming more traditional, more conservative-leaning, and even had some mixed seating. In the 1970s and 80s, into Chapter 3, the congregation leaned further into pluralistic worship, and also its works of loving kindness, with a very robust Chesed society and establishing the Rebecca's Tent Women's Shelter, which is still a thriving independent organization. Chapter 4 was marked by some good times and some difficult times. We were a robust congregation, but we fiercely disagreed about egalitarianism. When we committed to conservative Judaism, many left, but many new members joined. There were several years of financial crisis that some of you are all too aware of, tensions in governance and planning, and a lot of introspection. We struggled, but we were resilient and came out of it stronger. Into Chapter 5, so much has changed. In the last 10 years, as you've heard, we have grown significantly from about 200 families at the low to, as you've heard, more than double that number. We are in a much stronger financial position, and we are very actively stewarding all of our assets, not just financial, but people, expertise, and our physical structure. We have increased our inclusiveness, and we conduct more and better alternative services, learning opportunities, and events. And that doesn't even mention all of the other work we do in Shereth Israel for Good and Social Action, Chesed Committee, and way more. So now we have the chance to write the next chapter in the story. And I want to ask, what's possible in Chapter 6? We already are writing that chapter with so many exciting changes. In the next few months, we'll be onboarding new professional staff members and setting them up for success. Corey Hampton will be joining us as Executive Director after an excellent search process led by Josh D'Agostino and a team of dedicated volunteers working with Rabbi Kamen. We are in final discussions with excellent candidates for the Education Director role, and our Machane Shai program is being ably steered by Ori Salzberg and Jane Arnold. We are also thinking deeply about our future staffing needs. As we all wish Rabbi Helfand well in his new role, we know that we can build on his efforts with Rabbi Kamen to engage more congregants and further build and strengthen our community. One of our new board's first tasks is to look carefully at what that engagement looks like and how we can best deliver it. In addition to ensuring that our professional staff is the best that it can be, we will focus, as always, on the people, connections, services, and programs that allow our members to meaningfully engage in their Judaism and their community. And we will continue the work of the Master Planning Committee and the board to enhance and modernize our campus, which is our community home, after all, for meaningful living through Judaism in all its facets. We have a lot on our plate. I know we will thrive. And to ensure that we do, I'll echo something that has already been said today. The board and I need your help. Sherith Israel is absolutely a team sport. No one person delivers its success. It requires the special talents and gifts of the entire community. If you have an idea, or even a complaint, bring it forward. But be ready to help put it into action. In that way, together, we will write the next chapter in the story of Sherith Israel. I think about what we say at the end of each book of the Torah. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. Be strong, and let us strengthen one another. Thank you for giving us that strength. Thank you. Now, we've teased this a little bit, but I want to introduce two congregants who couldn't be here in person today, Jody Mansbach and Lindy Miller, who have invested a ton of time and energy, along with many others in our community, including many of you in this room, to help us lead us into our next chapter. You're about to see a video prepared by Lindy and Jody with Ori as production and director, who will provide an update on where we are in bringing to life some of the plans set out by the strategic plan and building on the work of the Master Planning Committee. This will be the #1 priority of our board, and there's so much progress already. We'll be hosting some conversations in the next 60 days to dive into the details. But we couldn't hold the annual meeting and not share a little of the incredible momentum that's going on right now. And once the rabbi technical staff... Do we need Ori? While we talk about that, while we look at the technical, I can tell you that we're going to be talking about the exciting developments you're about to hear about. It's been a process that's taken a couple of years to really realize where we wanted to be from our strategic plan into a master planning committee, working with architects, working with building experts, working with our own building and grounds committee to get to the place where we want to be developing for the future.
community is thriving and our campus needs to catch up.
So what are we actually going to do?
Here are some of the exciting things we're planning. A welcoming community courtyard with inviting office entrance, an outdoor pavilion for prayer and community connection, a great sacred community room, bigger than the chapel and more intimate than our large social hall, fully renovated kitchen for our shared celebration.
That is something that I know people have wanted for a long time. That kitchen is important.
For sure. We'll also have a dedicated space for young families, and finally, much-needed upgrades to improve comfort, security, and accessibility.
Wow, that's amazing. This is truly a community effort. I know we have leadership from the board, committees that tap into the tremendous expertise of our members, as well as some early funders who've really gotten us moving.
And together, we'll make sure it gets done. In fact, we're planning to break ground on the first phase of construction in 2026.
Yeah, there is so much momentum. We're so grateful to those who've stepped up already. Our honorary chairs, the Horowitz family, Aaron and Lance Chernow, and Sarah and Marshall Duke. Also, our early donors and many tireless volunteers. We want everyone in the community to roll up their sleeves and get involved in this campaign. We're calling it Le Door Gador, Building Sheriff's Future Together.
I think you can all agree that if Lindy and Jody were here, we would just be wildly enthusiastic about the work that they have done to date, plus thanking along with them the people who have already invested so much time, energy, and their financial commitments to get this Le Door Vador process rolling. As I say, we'll have some meetings in the next 60 days about it to learn more for congregants. As well, there's already an email that we've dedicated for this, capitalcampaign@sherethisrael.com. It is something that will change the way we connect with Shereth Israel and each other. With that, I would now welcome back Rabbi Kamen for the installation.
The first step to install a new board is to deinstall the last board. So if you have been a part of the last board, I want to invite you to now please rise. Each and every one of you has given your time, your energy, your love to this community. When I think of all that we accomplished together, when I think of the challenges that we faced, when I think of the ways in which your thoughtful, intentional expertise and love helped us to overcome those challenges, I know all of us, I join all of us in overflowing gratitude. So I want to thank you all for your efforts and formally deinstall you from your leadership. And now I want to, before I do, actually, I forgot one thing. This was a new addition. Before, I want to invite Blair to actually come up. Yes, right.
All right, thank you.
In order to, in particular, acknowledge Blair. Blair and I would get together at San Francisco Coffee every Friday morning at 8 a.m. And we would dream together about what needed to happen in this congregation. And Blair, one of the things that I think you understood very quickly is how many decisions really have to be made, right? There's no shortage of, and that's the ritual, the symbol of a gavel, right? This is a symbol that on one hand, it symbolizes order, right? A sense that there is a way in which people have to be brought together for a shared purpose. That's what a gavel is. But it's more than that. It's a symbol of saying decisions have to be made, and people trust you with those decisions. I trusted you with those decisions, and you helped me, you helped all of us to become a better congregation. We have all been deeply blessed by your leadership, and as you are stepping into your next chapter, which is not off the board. In our wisdom, we say past presidents continue on the executive committee for 2 years. I want you to take this gift, this token of the gratitude of the congregation, display it in your home, and know that you have made a difference here forever. And I bless you that it made a difference in you for the good too, and for your whole family. Thank you. Mazel tov. Thank you. I want to invite the new board to come stand here at the bima, and to stand, if you could, on the steps or on the upper bima. I'm going to face you. The challenges we have ahead are not small. We are in a time in the world that is struggling to find its next step. We are still a world at war, a people under threat. We are still grieving and mourning the loss of life that has occurred since October 7th. We are still praying every single day for the return of the hostages. These are really heavy, hard times. And here at Sherith Israel, we are facing a time in which our congregation is going to step forward, and under your leadership, imagine our next chapter of growth, our ability to make a positive difference in this world that is struggling to find its next step. Your part in that leadership matters. It's meaningful. I want to bless you with the words from the book of Deuteronomy. When Moshe is standing before the people of Israel, knowing all of the challenges that were ahead, knowing that they were about to face a war, knowing that they were a new generation that needed to overcome the challenges that their parents were unable to overcome. Every generation hears these words, Ma Adonai Elohecha shoel me'imach, ki im lirat Adonai Elohecha lelechet bechol derachav u'la'ava oto. לעבוד את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך לשמור את מצוות אדוני ואת חוקותיו. What does Adonai require of us? Only this: to have awe, to love, to serve with all our heart and soul, to keep the mitzvot, the laws of Adonai. Our God and God of our ancestors, bless the leaders of our congregation with wisdom, vigor, and understanding. Sustain them with your spirit and grant that their labors be a blessing and a source of blessing. And let us say, Amen. Please join me in welcoming the next board of Sherith Israel. Unless there's another word, this formally concludes our meeting.